It's almost a direct hit. In fact, the pitch levels are exactly the same. The rhythms change just a little bit, but it could have been lifted right from that spiritual. Here's another African-American spiritual that Dvorak is likely to have heard from Henry Burleigh, Deep River. Deep river, my home is over Jordan. Deep river, Lord, I want to pass over into campground. And surely the elegiac world of this spiritual, with its mellow quality, its homespun quality, must have been in Dvorak's mind when he composed the wonderful English horn melody from the second movement of his New World Symphony. We'll continue on the trail of Dvorak's sources of inspiration for his New World Symphony, the Symphony No. 9, in just another minute.
Well, many thanks to Carl Middleman and to the Altoona Symphony Orchestra conducted by Teresa Chung for treating us to some beautiful music and some really interesting information about the composer Antonin Dvorak. We've got some questions for Carl, and we want to start off with our special guest tonight. This is Joe Stevens, and Joe is the board chair of the Blair County Arts Foundation. Joe, I'd like for you to tell us a little bit about this wonderful theater and about the programming that you offer to the community, and then we're going to let you go ahead and ask the first question for Carl.
Sure. Well, arts education is really at the central mission of the Blair County Arts Foundation, as well as the preservation of this wonderful historic Mishler Theater. The magic of the arts really happens here for so many of our young people in our community, whether that's through our programming, such things as our family theater, which introduces thousands of children to live theater, or the very unique opportunity that many of our young people have to perform on this very historic stage, a stage that once featured artists such as Sarah Bernhardt and Al Jolson. So to us, the preservation of this theater and the arts for this community is what we're here for.
So your question for Carl.
My question is, I'm wondering why Dvorak? Why not Beethoven, Brahms, Bach as an introduction, especially for young people, to classical music?
So when you mentioned the 3 B's, everybody here in the room, what is your response? Do you tend to tighten up a little bit? You think the 3 B's? Because there's something rather sterile about that, isn't there? And the 3 B's can be kind of foreboding, Bach, Beethoven, and Brahms. But listen to this picture music that's going on here. The wide open spaces here. We know that young people respond to illustrations now more than ever. So this is a great introduction. It gives play to the imagination. You can really jump off of this. And this composer, Dvorak, is less abstract than Bach, Beethoven, or Brahms. So it's he's a great entry point into classical music.
Hi, you've mentioned that Dvorak came to America in 1892, and that seemed kind of prearranged in reference to 1492, 1892. The Columbian Exposition was held in Chicago in 1893. You've also mentioned the influence of American Indian music on Dvorak. Did Dvorak have a chance to go further west than the cities you've already mentioned, like Philadelphia, Boston, New York? And did he get to the Columbian Exposition? Did that play any influence on him?
He did visit that exposition in Chicago. We don't know a lot about what he experienced there. And he also summered in Spillville, Iowa in the summer of 1893. And it was one of the happiest times. He visited a neo-Bohemian village in Iowa. And he had a student, let's see if I can get it right, named Dvorak, who was the son of a musician who had emigrated from Bohemia and was living in this neo-Bohemian village in Spillville. He sent his son to go and study with Dvorak in Prague, and then the son came back as Dvorak's kind of personal secretary when Dvorak came back to New York, and then he traveled with him to Spillville as well.
Hi, Carl. First of all, I want to applaud you and the orchestra for this wonderful experience. My husband's from Philadelphia, so I feel we're connected. We used to live there, so I hear a little bit of an accent. Anyway, it's great, and I love your vest. We'll have to talk about that later. As a teacher and as the mother of a son who's a lyricist and composer, as a daughter who is a cellist, her cello teacher, Mr. William Darimer, is right there giving us some wonderful music tonight. My question is, one, how do you choose the schools that you go into? Two, it is so refreshing to know that these programs exist because I see people walking around in solitary confinement. Nobody talks to anybody. Everyone has iPods, and except me, I don't know how to work them. But I think that this is like the first taste of something wonderful, and it can just explode into a forever love of music. As I said, our daughter is a cellist. Now she's a psychologist, but in her free time and in high school, she had a trio, and our son is an award-winning lyricist and composer. John Kaplan, Washington, D.C. So I think this is the first taste for some people of classical music, and it's fun and it's wonderful and it's rhythmical. And the 3 Bs don't really appeal to me that much. I love this more. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
These are difficult times for arts education, aren't they? Yet, when the histories are written, will the skyscrapers be remembered? Will the huge shopping malls be remembered? Maybe it will be the art that's remembered, the poetry. And what this music offers is an opportunity for us to project our souls into it. And all the multitasking that young people do at their computers these days doesn't bring them any closer to being in touch with nature or to take care of the earth. And somehow this music, with its wide expanse, its homespunness, the folk songs, the folk dances, kind of are a wake-up call. They bring us back to feeling, thinking about nature and letting it saturate us. So it sounds like you've succeeded with your daughter, and I hope that more people support the arts. But just by the way, there are 88, this is hardly a beginning, there are 88 speakers in the Pennsylvania Humanities Council who present an amazing variety of lectures hosted by Tracy Matichek, and I've gone to a number of them, and they've been wonderful. So I encourage you to go to the website and discover more of them.
Carl, thanks so much for telling us, educating us on all the influences on Dvorak in Europe and also here. Are there any people that followed him in American music that were influenced by his style or that took his style in other directions?
He was ahead of the cusp in terms of the diversities that were expressed in his music. Other composers did continue that. Well, for example, I would get to it normally a little later, but since you asked, 15 years after Dvorak left America, the young George Gershwin was playing in the streets not too far away from where Dvorak had been. He was playing in the streets of Brooklyn with African-American jazz musicians. And what do you know, but a few years later, he composes Rhapsody in Blue, which is an amazing amalgamation of jazz styles and the concert tradition, the symphonic styles. It's just amazing. And for his part, Gershwin's gift beyond that was all these beautiful jazz-influenced songs that jazz musicians have in turn been influenced by and still riff off of to our present day. So there's this reciprocity that took place. But then numerous other composers followed that, and it's really part of one of the great parts of the American experiment, this cross-fertilization of styles.
Well, thank you, Carl, and thank you so much to our audience for asking some really insightful questions that helped us to learn even more. We'll go back now for more from Carl Middleman and the Altoona Symphony Orchestra, conducted by Teresa Chung. Please welcome them.
Besides utilizing Negro spirituals, Antonin Dvorak also wanted to reference the culture of American Indians. But now we come to a problem that has bothered all Dvorak commentators. Dvorak knew practically nothing about American Indian culture. Aside from a trifling encounter with Buffalo Bill Cody's traveling roadshow, and another trifling encounter with a Kickapoo medicine show, Dvorak had practically no experience with American Indians. And in fact, even the Kickapoo medicine show, other than some singing and dancing, had almost nothing to do with American Indians, as the products were manufactured in New Haven, Connecticut. Liver pills, heart pills, virility pills, and so forth, supposedly based on Native American remedies. Okay? So we may wish to stop and pause for a moment and ask a simple question. Why did Dvorak bother to compose music that referenced